Hey folks, this is just a quick note to tell you that we recorded this episode before episode 3 of And Just Like That dropped, and before we were made aware of the allegations of rape and sexual assault against Chris Noth. As you know, this is a show about women, and we would be totally remiss if we didn't just put this disclaimer at the top of the episode, since the allegations were not something that we mentioned throughout.
Obviously, here you might know her from We Believe Women, We Believe Victims, and we take these allegations very seriously, and apparently so does Peloton, because they took down that fucking ad. So, on with the show, babies.
Oh, Damien, hello.
Oh, hey, Anne.
I just wanted to tell you that I poured myself a glass of vodka. I brought a vodka to this Zoom. Look, there are multiple things happening here. I don't have cranberry juice in my house, but since we are tackling all things And Just Like That / Sex and the City today, this is my nod to the Cosmo / also Stephen Sondheim, who swore by like 2 fingers of vodka anytime he worked. So I believe in that too.
Well, and just like that, you got a storyline like Miranda Hobbs.
Oh my God.
Why are they making her an alcoholic?
It's such lazy writing. It's literally so lazy and so boring. Like, legitimately, who cares? I cannot deal with, like, first of all, I used to bartend right by Columbia. So the idea that I have so much to say, but like, I used to have a professor that would come in at 10 a.m. before the bar was open and sit with me and like demand a beer as his hand shook, raising it to his face. And I was like, oh, he needs it. This is the Miranda Hobbs storyline. That's where I'm at today too.
Yeah, it makes me sad because I feel like the show, and we're going to get to all of it, we'll set it all up for you so I kind of go maybe in some linear way, but the fact that like that is like one of the many things that they've decided that they need to like squeeze in, it's like the show can only be so much, you know?
It can really only be so much. And also, like, she drinks because Steve can't hear. I don't know. I just feel like what are they doing to her? I have lots of thoughts. Like you said, we're going to get into all of it, but welcome to our last show of 2021.
Oh my goodness. Can you believe?
Can you believe it? If you don't know the show, it's our podcast where we shoot the shit with each other, and usually we interview an actress each episode, but this is a very special holiday time where Damien and I are taking it upon ourselves to tackle the cultural phenomenon known as And Just Like That. So I hope that you're up to date. Just fair warning, this is the first 2 episodes of the show that we're going to be breaking down.
At time of recording, you might know her from has not seen episode 3 and beyond. I did see someone on Twitter who had a screener be like, episode 3 somehow fixes it all. And I was like, I don't trust this person's opinion enough, so I know them well enough. I know them well enough to know I don't trust their opinion.
Good point.
Well, I would say that one of the most satisfying parts of the early moments of the episode, of episode 1, is that former guest of this show, Julie Halston, gets to be the one who delivers the exposition of where's the 4th Musketeer? And then we get this whole scene, or not even this whole scene, we get this moment where it's established that Samantha Jones has now moved to London. So I'm so glad Julie Halston appears in the first 2 episodes and that she is.
Me too.
That she's returned. I can't believe they killed Nathan Lane.
I know.
Did he decline the offer to return?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I mean, obviously, I feel like Nathan Lane probably lives somewhere on the East Coast, but maybe they just couldn't get him. I'm into the idea of him being like, thanks, but no thanks.
I'm into that, too. I'm into him being like, I don't think this needs to be revived, and I don't need the check that bad. I have to say, like, I need to get into the Kim Cattrall stuff, but I know that I'm going to go too hard. So I just want to say, like, my assessment from both episodes was just like, I was so deeply embarrassed and cringing the whole time, but also very happy to see them. And I don't know how to like describe it other than that. Like, I don't think it was good. I don't think it was the worst thing in the world. I just don't know why. I felt embarrassed, but I love them.
Correct. And here's the thing. I mean, I grew up watching the show in real time on HBO, and I have a much more fondness for the series than I do for the movies. I think you love the movies in a different way. I've literally only seen each movie once in my life, and that was in the theaters, and have never revisited either of them. And
okay, but can I just, in my defense,
that wasn't. I was just saying. I was setting up that I think the series is a combination of the TV show and the movies, and it meets somewhere in the middle. And I was like annoyed that it doesn't start with a theme song, but then I was like, honestly, these episodes are 45 minutes and it like resides somewhere between the like thematically between the TV show and the movies.
That is accurate.
It was not criticism of you loving the movies. It was just that like, I think I have like this mental space where like, I'm not prepared to like give into it just being kind of like stupid and bad because I hold it in some regard from the series, I guess, because it was also like I'm emotionally attached from being a child watching it.
I totally understand that, and I agree with you. I think that I am able to hold the movies. For me, the first film I think is like terrible. Like, I cannot believe that she ends up with Big after he stood her up at the altar. Like, there's just no way that that is ever realistic and does not align with who Carrie or any of the women are. But I can, like, enjoy it. The second film is so bad, but it's like watching your favorite characters from something in an alternate universe. So now I've watched it so many times that, like, I, like, laugh out loud at it because it's so embarrassing. But to me, it's like, oh, it's like exists separately from the series.
Totally. It's like Sweet Valley High, Sweet Valley Twins. It's like all of the spinoffs. You're like, okay, these are different things. They're not the original.
It's like watching like the X-Men like movie or reading like X-Men Blue versus X-Men Gold and being like, oh, X-Men, like these are different universes, like different authors, or like it's like the same characters, same origin stories, but they're in different things. So anyway, that is all to say that I enjoyed it and was embarrassed by it. And I, at first, was like, okay. I was like, okay, I understand they couldn't kill Samantha off. They want to leave the door open for her to return. They know how much fans love her. But then I talked to my friend Kelly afterwards, and she was like, they did Samantha so dirty. And she sent me an article, which we'll link in the show notes. But the article was just like, you know, this is like antithetical to everything that the show and movie stood for in terms of like the friendship between the women.
Correct.
And for 6 seasons and 2 films, we were like taught that they were each other's soulmates and nothing would come between them, including men and boyfriends, husbands, even children. And specifically like Carrie and Samantha, like everybody is best friends with Carrie. And so the article that I read talked about how the only time they ever had a fight was when Carrie like walks in on Samantha giving someone a blowjob, and like a FedEx guy or something, and Carrie like runs away embarrassed, and then Samantha's like, "You will not fucking judge me," and eventually like Carrie apologizes, and Samantha's like, "Listen, I don't want to. I'm sorry. Like, we're fabulous. We're perfect. We're moving on." I read that and I remember that episode so specifically, and I was like, "That's a great point." And like, I think I'm as a creator, writer, culture critic, whatever, can understand that like they were like backed into a corner with how to deal with Kim Cattrall's exit. But as like a person who wants to be loyal to the source material, I just think that it is so antithetical to who these characters were, and also kind of felt like ribbing Kim Cattrall for like money, like she wanted more money.
Ooh, yeah, that's such a good point. I hadn't really considered that, but that's
like, I thought I was
true.
more than an ATM to her, and it's like, okay, we know that there's stuff here, but like if you're trying to ever get back in her good graces, like it doesn't feel like this is the way. I'm going to put a pin in my thoughts. I have more to say, and I got into it a little bit on the phone yesterday with you, and you were like, I have opinions, so I'm going to like hold the next part of my Kim Cattrall thing and Samantha stuff, and you go.
I just want to tack onto that I completely agree with the sentiment that I think the show lost its heart because it is about the 4 women. And so not to say that things don't come up and friendships don't fall apart, but I don't think the justification they gave for Samantha, like ending the friendship, not communicating, is correct. Like, she doesn't fucking need the money. Also, Carrie's like doing a podcast. Like, she's not rolling in it. Like, Sam is in PR and is doing fine. So I don't think like not having a paycheck from a book deal is going to be the thing that like breaks up their friendship. It makes me sad because I'm also like on the Kim Cattrall bandwagon. And we had talked about this podcast in the past on this show called Origins, which really dives deep into the history of the show and interviews everybody except Kim Cattrall. They tried to use what she has said on the record, like in her defense, since she wasn't there to speak for herself. And a lot of people were like shitting on Kim Cattrall. I'm like, I get it, the drama of being on a long running series and everybody wanting more money, but I love SJP. But the fact of the matter is, I think that if the issue is that Kim Cattrall was upset because she didn't get an EP credit, like, sorry, as you and I have discussed, she's doing so much of the heavy lifting on the show. It's like, just give them all an EP credit. Like, just give all 3 of the women, because like your job as a star is to make sure that the other people are getting things too. And like, it's not just on the weight of your shoulders that the show is a success. Like, Kim Cattrall is doing a lot of the work here, and I think that she deserved that. I think all 3 of the women deserved it.
Yeah, so I think I have 2 things to say. One, I agree with, like, it was not a justification for Sam's exit, and I think that it actually could have been interesting if Carrie and Samantha were like having on the outs, and that was like a season-long arc, and we were going to see maybe that something would happen for season 2 if it happens, because I assume that because the thing that's annoying to me, a tangent, is that like they keep wanting to say in press interviews like, this isn't the Sex and the City, this is the next chapter, it's different, and it's like, okay, well then have Michael Patrick King create a vehicle for the 3 of you where people will love to see you guys working together, but we're not supposed to be like holding the former characters in like having nostalgic feels for them. But but it is Sex and the City. It's an extension of it. So stop acting like she's not, like, the people aren't allowed to be outraged that she's not a part of it, because she is the sex of it.
Right. Literally no one is having sex on this show.
Except fucking Brady, and also,
disgusting.
like, masturbate for me. Like, I cannot, it was literally like watching my old boss talk. It was like watching my old boss and friend Liz talk about, like, sex. It was like, masturbate for me. And I was like, this is uncomfortable. And I texted Liz and she said, yes, in that scene, I am that. I just want to talk about puns. I never want to talk about sex. It was like so uncomfortable. It was like, this is not organic and sexy. Nothing about it was. And there was also like, she wrote a sex column for years. So like, yes, she was always a little prudish, but like this idea that she like couldn't be like sexually liberated in the world of like non-binary people existing, and her being like, I don't know what sex.
It was so clunky. I have to say, just in defense of that one moment, I have a list here. I made a list of the good, the bad, and the ugly from the first 2 episodes, and I actually put the masturbation scene in the good, and I have very few things in the good, just for my record. I agree it was messy, but I do think like some part of it tracks for Carrie, because she is so prudish for being on a show about sex and like being a sex columnist. She's so prudish, but I felt like it was shocking for her, because like Carrie only said like fuck a few times in the entire original series. Like it's so irritating to me. So I feel like actually asking her partner to like masturbate and not anything else was hot in its way for her character, except for like it lasted for 2 seconds, and then I felt like he really gave it to. I feel like he gave it the face that I was looking for with masturbation for a guy, and then I feel like it just ended in like what was supposed to be a sweet, like their last sex scene, and then it cut away, and I thought, this is so stupid. I was into like having her follow through with like watching him like jerk off to completion, and like what that looked like for Carrie.
Yes, I agree with that. I think I agree with that. Even though it was cringe, I don't know that it was totally out of place for Carrie. But I think two things you mentioned, or a thing you mentioned that I'm going to get back on Kim Cattrall for a second.
Go, baby.
Carrie never said the F word, because Sarah Jessica Parker like doesn't like to curse.
Correct.
And also was never topless, while the other 3 were like literally getting like fake semen splashed on their faces and getting called whores. Yes. And I wanted to just bring it back to like in that Origins podcast, which again we'll link in the show notes. If you are a big Sex and the City fan, like it was so illuminating, and the 3rd episode is really about like the continuation of the series into the films and the fallout with Kim Cattrall and the press, and like what would happen, because I think this was before the new series was announced, is when it was ended. And like Michael Patrick King goes on this whole like, I don't know, not a rant. He basically says like Sarah Jessica Parker was a movie star at the time of this series happening, and she was doing it on a network that was like basically pay-per-view for boxing matches, and the show had sex in the title. Like she got a great deal, and the other women like Kristen and Cynthia always and still do understand that like the show would not exist without her, that like these deals were made in place years ago. Her name will always be above the credits. And I understand it. And I think I told you this, like if this was a version where like I was like one of 4 bumps on a log, and I knew that I was like the 3rd banana, I would accept it probably, because I would be grateful, or at least like I would hope that that's my energy. But the idea that like we're going to like vilify the woman who wants more, who is really, in my opinion, she and Charlotte are tackled with the most difficult material, because it's not as grounded as the other 2. Yeah. And she's a much better actor to me. No offense to Kristen Davis. I love you. I'd love to have you come on the show. But Kim Cattrall is like really like tasked with doing not awful, but like doing wild things and having to ground them. And I think she's an expert at it. So the idea that like as the show became more successful and won awards and made the network money and all of these people money, that she wouldn't be able to say like, I want an EP credit, or I want my name above the title. Also the idea that Sarah Jessica Parker was such a bigger star at the time of the show starting, where it's like Kim Cattrall had Mannequin, she had the Police Academy films, like she wasn't a nobody, and Sarah Jessica Parker wasn't Julia Roberts. She was in like Mars Attacks and LA Story and things that were like high profile, but she was like the girlfriend to funny guys, or was like the 4th or 5th banana in big movies, you know? So I just think that like the idea that this woman is supposed to accept, like eat her shit because, and maybe it was great shit. Like Cynthia Nixon and Kristen Davis seem like they are all good pals and like all understand what it is. But Kim doesn't. And I just like the idea that like that somehow she fucked it up for everybody and like didn't make this 3rd movie happen. So now they're making the 3rd movie happen as a series. I don't know. I feel like overwhelmed, because like I'm also like watching it, you know. I'm like I have a million thoughts.
I have a lot of love for Sarah Jessica Parker, who I've loved for so many years, and I think she is so good. It just feels like at a certain point, like everyone has made a lot of money on this show. Like I'm pretty sure like rest in peace, Willie Garson probably made like good money from the show. Do you know what I mean? So I can only imagine that the other 3 women besides Kim are also doing fine. Maybe just leave well enough alone, like know when to stop. I just want to put this in here real quick. Pen 15 is the show that I'm obsessed with on Hulu, and they're ending it after 2 seasons because the premise is that these women that are like 31 are playing their 13-year-old selves opposite actual 13-year-olds. And they were like, the show doesn't extend beyond 7th grade because that is the arc of this entire story. So even though the show has gained a lot of momentum and success and gotten better in season 2, it's like we're actually ending it because that is the entire story. It's like knowing when to stop is so important. And I feel like that's what this show doesn't know how to do. And like it could be on SJP to just say like, you know what, I'm done. I'm going to do my shoe line and do like another HBO show that very few people watch and let it be what it is. Like, you're a cultural icon. You're an international cultural icon. The show existed and was pretty great. I don't know that we need this. That being said, of course, I'm watching all of it.
Okay, so let's talk about the big hole in the room, which is Big dying.
I would like to refer to it as Chris Noth's exit strategy, which I think is expert. Like, literally knew that he didn't want to do this fucking show anymore, but could get like a perfect send off and then the best coda you could possibly imagine. Like, honestly, good for him.
You had recommended the Origins podcast for me, and I actually like started it and loved it and then never finished. It's only 3 episodes. So I actually finished it after I watched And Just Like That, which actually was kind of perfect because it was all about Kim Cattrall in the series and movies and everything. The series ending in the movies. And in it, Chris Noth said that like he didn't read the script for the 3rd film, but he had heard it was the best. He also like basically says how he was sick of playing big. And then one of the people in the interview says that Big was supposed to die in the 3rd film. So I didn't know that. Like, I think I had heard rumors of that, but I didn't know that. So did you had listened to
I actually forgot that. I listened to it a few months ago, and honestly, I forgot it. But yeah, that is true. Everything on that podcast, they're talking about how the 3rd movie was supposed to be the best script anybody could have possibly imagined, and that's why they're all so fucking upset that Kim Cattrall wouldn't do it. It's like, well, now we're left with this thing that is
which just feels
tacked on.
Feels like a movie that was like now broken up into episodes where now they've added this like other life of like post pandemic, not really post, but like living in a pandemic, Black Lives Matter, and like Asian hate has happened. So now non-binary people exist. It's like they're just adding the things, topical things.
It's all Forrest Gump. Like they're just putting it all into one pot.
Yeah.
I think that it was inevitable that Big had to die because honestly, it's like it's interesting you say that because I did not remember it, and then my friend Sarah had said, something big happens. Do you know what it is? And I was like, is it that Charlotte has a trans kid? Because I feel like, yeah, we gleaned that from the trailer. And she was like, no, something else. I was like, stop talking. And then as soon as I saw Big smoking that cigar, giving SJP the like Bradley Cooper to Lady Gaga, let me look at you one more time. Yeah. I was like, oh, he's dead. He's dead. But I mean, I think it has to happen because it's not fun to watch 3 married people on a show called Sex and the City. It's just like, is the trajectory interesting? Sure, if the writing was good. But, like, it isn't. And what they're giving us is not detailed and interesting. Honestly, I thought, like, Miranda doesn't need to be an alcoholic. Like, the issue of, like, her white hair, I thought was, like, in line with what the series would have done. And I was like, go with this. This can be the thing that she's grappling with this and feeling like she's in sort of a static position in her marriage. He's going deaf. Her kids. Like, I'm interested. That seems like it's in line with it, even if it's not about, like, people having random sex. But, like, somebody has to be single so that there is, like, actual meet cutes or sex or some sort of sparkly something happening between people because otherwise it's not the same show.
I totally agree. And like I agree with that like Miranda doesn't need to be an alcoholic, and like it felt believable that like she would be back in grad school and that she was like sort of a mom who would like be sex positive and let her kid have sex in the house, or all of those things felt true. But then it was like the cringe scene of her talking to the professor and then like continuing to bumble over that felt not Miranda, because she was not the one who was like the quote unquote Karen of the group, if we had to label someone as such.
Exactly.
She also wouldn't get in a fight with somebody about her kids smoking like from a weed vape.
That was insane. That was insane.
The same mom who lets her kid have sex in the house that she's sleeping in is not the same person who argues with someone about their kid smoking weed. It's just like, it just 100%. Doesn't align.
It's lazy writing, and it's really just trying to justify her sort of like whatever we're supposed to be setting up with Che, which, by the way, I'm appreciative that Sada Ramirez is like on the show, but they are like, there is no chemistry between Sada and Cynthia that I've witnessed as of episode 2. Did not feel it. And if that's what's supposed to be happening, I also think it's too on the nose if we're supposed to believe that Miranda is going to have like a queer romance.
The person who's in a relationship with a woman in the cast in real life now needs to be like have open their relationship up or divorce their husband to like fuck a non-binary person. It's stupid.
I can't deal with the podcast in general. Is that Bobby Lee from Mad TV, by the way, as the cis man? I can't get over how many times Sada Ramirez is tasked with saying, as a stand-up, I could do a tight 10 on blah, blah. I was like, this is some of the worst writing I've ever heard. Like, this is pathetic. And it actually makes me hate their character because they talk about being a stand-up as much as they do. So, I mean, getting back to the idea that the show is trying to shoehorn in every sort of hot button sociopolitical issue of the current moment is difficult because the original show was so tone deaf to anything that was sort of happening in the real world, and the movies were exponentially so. So then to be forced to like watch Miranda deal with like white guilt and have Charlotte not be able to like understand what it is to maybe have a gender nonconforming or trans kid is like kind of gross. And also like listening to Carrie say, I mean, I shook with cringe in that opening scene where Carrie just said wait person and also mic drop. And I was like, was this like, who wrote this? Is so bad. This is embarrassing writing about what, like, I do think it's true that those characters would be out of touch with the current moment. I completely agree that they would feel like out of step with whatever was happening but like, it's not surprising to me that the original series was like full of white people because I don't think those people would have had friends that were like people of color, and now every single woman has a person of color in their life that is like an addendum to the show who is obvious. Like none of those people are going to get real plot points anyway, so it just feels like they were trying to listen to the notes they got on the series and the criticisms and respond to them. And I think they were damned if they do and damned if they don't. If they don't respond and try and keep it in the same theme of the original series, people will say like, wow, this thing should have stayed where it was and kept it buried. And like, as it is, it's just not smart writing about any of it. And I think, as you were saying about like Miranda's reactions to her professor, by the way, Karen Pittman doing double work in both And Just Like That and The Morning Show. Wow. We need to get Karen Pittman on this show because I need to talk to her about the things that she has been tasked to do during these pandemic years. But I think it's doing a disservice to the characters who, again, I hold with a lot of regard in a lot of ways, but it's just sort of like difficult to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to watch. And I feel like I was talking at a holiday party where you were there, but I was talking to our friends Alex and our friends Eddie, and they were talking about like the original series like didn't have context for like the times. So like 9/11 happened, but they didn't talk about 9/11. They talked about like I Love New York, you know?
Yes.
And
yes.
I feel like that is the difference. It's like this series is trying to be like Carrie's doing Instagram and she's having a podcast, and there's like a kid who may like Charlotte has a child that may be gender nonconforming or non-binary or trans, and then like Miranda's an alcoholic and has a husband who's like losing his hearing, but then also they have a son who has a Latinx person who they're having sex in the house, and like, you know, it's like just like, and the Carrie has a non-binary like new boss, and it's like there's just so many like things that are like relevant and of the moment that are like being shoved down our throats. But I will say that positives of that to me are getting to see Nicole Ari Parker on the show, who is so beautiful and stunning.
God, it's like shocking when she comes on screen. You're like, she is like iridescent. She is so beautiful. My God, she just like shines.
I just like she like looks 10 years younger than all of them. Also, they call her LTW, and I keep thinking of Andrew Lloyd Webber like ALW. I don't know why, but I was so glad to see her, gay icon from The Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love. But I will say, like, my negative on that character is that, like, she would never in any world ever be married to Christopher Jackson from Hamilton. And, like, I just need Hamilton people to relax. Like, Hamilton people need to relax. Like, he is not worthy of being married to her IRL.
I totally agree, but if you look in the world and see how many stunningly beautiful women are married to super average looking men, it is tons of them.
Not beautiful rich women who, like, her real life husband, Boris Kojo, should have been her real life husband.
No, yeah,
like,
they're the same level of like insane beauty.
Yeah, I'm not into it. And I think people like in their brains who know what's happening are like, yeah, Hamilton hot. And I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah, and I mentioned the great Karen Pittman, who I think is very good here with terrible material. I couldn't deal with, honestly, I thought the Chucky doll like attacking her in the second episode where you're like, what is happening? That actually felt like New York. And I was into that. I was not into having it once again be a moment about like about Miranda having to deal with white savior moment. She was like, and then it was like, old school. Oh yeah, Kindle wouldn't have hit his heart. I was like, oh boy, these are like real Borscht Belt jokes. But I do feel like that Chucky doll was an example of what New York life can be like, and I appreciated that nod. I am excited in the trailer for episode 3 and the rest of the season that we'll get to see former guest of this show, Sarita Chowdhury, looking again stunningly beautiful. And who else do we have coming on board?
Ali Stroker is also going to be, I guess, working for the podcast network or radio station or wherever the fuck that podcast is happening. So I'm happy to see Tony Winner, Ali Stroker getting TV work.
Yeah.
A positive for me would be the Bitsy cameo and also the Susan Sharon cameos. Like, they were really pleasing. But I felt like this is a comedy. I mean, it's a dramedy, but like it's a comedy. And I felt like the funeral scene really could have like done more of that, like blown more of that out and like had more of Carrie's exes show up. Have
Tatum
like
O'Neal.
Thank you so much. That's like literally what I was working towards. It's like, where was Tatum O'Neal? To me, that would have been so funny and such a great like in joke to people who
Somebody mentioned Lexi's death. Like, just let it be what it is.
Also, where was Sonia Braga? They could have added her back in.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, hopefully she's living with Samantha in London. I have a question for you related to the funeral scene. Was Miranda's speech supposed to be good?
Thank you for bringing it up because it was not on my list, but like it was so bad, and I think it was supposed to be good. And then she was like, "Carrie wrote it," and I was like,
"I know," and I was like, "Wait, is that the laugh line?"
I thought it was supposed to be
waiting for the laugh line because like this is embarrassing. This is so bad. And, like I was into Carrie having this statement funeral, which was hideous, by the way. It looked like PowerPoints that I've been to at my place of business, but I was appreciative that I felt like that was in line with her and with Big.
I agree,
but that speech was so embarrassing, and then I just couldn't tell what the tone of the entire second episode was supposed to be because I was waiting for the laughs and then we didn't come. I will say that I was so excited to see Brenda Vaccaro as Big Secretary, as Carrie mentioned she likes to be called. And here's what I would like to suggest is again, we haven't seen episodes 3 or 4. What I think is coming, and I'm hopeful, is that Brenda Vaccaro's character knows where all the bodies are buried. And so maybe there will be a problem with the apartment. Maybe there will be a problem with the money, and Carrie will be left without the inheritance that we all assume she would get if and when Big died. And so like I am into that. I don't think they have enough time to cover that in however many episodes are left, but would I be into Carrie having to like move into Charlotte's guest bedroom because she can't make rent and she has like all of these bills to pay from the funeral and like Big owed a ton of money or whatever. Like that is the Sex and the City that I'm actually invested in because it puts Carrie back at zero a little bit in ways that will bring us back to, I think, her true character, as opposed to like, I guess it makes sense that she was like, I'm driving out to the Hamptons on Wednesday night with Big. It's like, yeah, I guess that's who she became, but like, it kind of sucks. Like that Carrie kind of sucks.
It's just sort of, again, it's in opposition to the character that we met, got to know, and loved. It's like a little bit like, oh, now you're this person. That's an interesting theory, and I am not mad at it either.
I'm going to tell you one thing that I think would bring us back to original Carrie, and that's her smoking. I think she needs to start smoking again.
Do you think SJP smoked at the time, and that was why it was written?
100%. She's a smoker.
Do you think she still smokes?
Yes. I think a lot of actors still smoke, and it makes me laugh. I don't know why. Like, it's just funny to me that so many people, like, don't smoke anymore, but I think a lot of actors that are over the age of 30 completely smoke. Like Jennifer Aniston, smoker. Ben Affleck, smoker.
Moira Tierney, definitely a smoker. I saw a photo recently. It was like Rihanna with Kathy Hilton, and like Kathy Hilton's like holding a cigarette and like trying to hide it in her like fist. And I was like, oh, that's of course she's a smoker. Like it's like people smoke and you don't see them smoking because people like you're not supposed to show that on television anymore or in movies. But like of course people still smoke, and like unless you're seeing a photo of them by the paparazzi, then like they generally don't get photographed doing it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to like keep harping on the Samantha stuff, but like, what do you think of the way that they like are continuing the story with like she sent flowers and then we got to see Carrie send a text. Like it does seem like they are opening that door, but I don't think the door's like I don't think that Kim Cattrall is ever going to come back. So what do you think that they're doing? Why didn't they let Samantha maintain relationships with Miranda and Charlotte? Again, to me, that dynamic is more interesting because at least then I would say like they had a falling out, but the other two are still in touch with her and like they're stuck in between.
Right, and that's tricky. Yeah, I don't know. And I'm wondering like if they had finished writing the entire series and like have filmed all of it, or if they're still working through stuff and releasing it without the last few episodes being filmed. Do you know that answer?
Oh, no, I just assume it's all in the can. You think that there's a potential that they have like are like trying to get her in for the last episode?
Yeah, but I think they actually don't know. I don't think they're going to kill her off because I think there's already like too much death associated with And Just Like That they couldn't kill Samantha off at this point. But I think they're just going to let it linger. And I feel like the series will end with like a phone call and Carrie will pick up the phone and she'll be like, "Hi, Samantha." And that'll be like the end of the show.
Oh my God, speaking of people saying people's names, can we talk about when Karen Pittman's character, the professor, is like tasked with introducing like her personal story while she's on the and she's like,
God.
"Hi, Andre. Andre, why are we talking about my IVF treatment while I'm on the public transit?" And then he's like, "Oh, love, I'm going to go make dinner." And I was like, oh my God, who's writing the script? Oh, love. Right. Like, I'm into people being like having weird quirks and being idiosyncratic, but I'm also like would like it to feel like it's not like that version of Miranda writing the script, like, "All love, Andre." Correct. It's like, okay, calm down. Like, just treat them like regular people. Lord.
I know. I think the show doesn't know how to do it, frankly.
I mean, I will say that some other things that I liked before we wrap is that I loved big, loving Linda Ronstadt, and like loved that like little cute little like detail of them listening to records during the. I thought this show actually sort of like delicately and nicely handled like conversation around coronavirus and like Carrie wearing gloves, and that was a thing that she adopted during the pandemic, and then them listening to records, like a new record every night. Like, I thought that those were sweet and felt real. Yeah. I saw people talking about, like, someone talking on Twitter about how they used to hate Stanford, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. I never hated him. I understand, like, at the time maybe it felt like he was a stereotype in some way, but like I am very charmed by Stanford. Obviously, like now Willie Garson has passed, but it was like nice to see him and Anthony, even though it makes no sense that they would be married.
It makes absolutely zero sense.
And like Mario Cantone got all the laugh lines, like no one else was getting jokes, and he got to like when he said the thing about like Black Charlotte, I was like, is that funny? I don't know, but like at least it was a joke.
Yeah.
I felt like it was good to see them, and I felt like in the time, like I don't know, they're like first gay people on TV.
I will say one of the things I loved is that Charlotte's new dog is named Richard Burton, which is obviously because the original dog named Elizabeth Taylor died. And I thought this is actually a really nice nod. And it's just like it goes over you. It doesn't matter. But if you get it, you get it. And great, moving on.
And like Cynthia Nixon and Sarah Jessica Parker are such great actors. And like the brunch scenes to me, even though they were still like heavy handed at times, like the chemistry between the three of them still exists and was like fun to watch, even if I wish that there were more puns, and I wish that, you know, it was more sexual and funnier, you know?
Yeah. I know there was a lot of conversation on Twitter about Carrie not calling 911 when Big had his heart attack. And like, I get it, but also like, I don't really care because it is kind of the Titanic of it all. Like the goal is like, we're killing Big, it's happening. So whether or not she calls 911 in that moment, I think what she should have done is do chest compressions, honestly, if I'm being serious.
I thought that's what she was trying to do at one point. I thought she was like, she like got him on I was like, why are you moving him? And then she was like trying to get her, like, she was trying to like kiss him, or like, I was like, is she going to trying to like give him like mouth to mouth? And then, and I was like, she was like, I thought she was going to.
So maybe she was making a move towards it. It didn't bother me that she didn't call 911. Like, I get it that that's a complaint, but also I feel like we knew from the moment of him smoking that cigar that like the goal of this episode is like, we're killing Big. This is basically the catalyst for the entire series, because really nothing else is happening. Legitimately nothing else is happening in this show except for he's dead.
Yeah, it's a way to get her back to one. So
were you into the Peloton commercial?
I was like shocked that it happened. I don't know that I'm going to say I'm as into it.
Their Twitter said that they pulled it together in 48 hours. I feel like that has to be a lie, and that Chris Noth is like smart and savvy enough to be like, hey, what do you think about this?
Oh, I'm into that.
But they were like, if we could pull this spot together in 48 hours, you can finish your workout today. I was like, I hate Twitter. I literally hate everything about corporate branding and like brands having clever Twitters and the integration. Because as soon as they said Peloton, I was like, oh, this is like product placement. And then I was like, oh, it's killing him. That's interesting that they went for that.
I don't think it was product placement. It's weird to me, or like it was, but they didn't ask enough questions, and then they felt like they had to get around it, like they had to fix it, you know?
I thought it was clever. I thought they did a good job with it, but I'm interested in whether or not they got it pulled together actually in 48 hours. But, you know, Chris Noth is such like a slick guy, and I feel like he actually feels like Big in real life. When you hear him interviewed, I feel like he's kind of like that. He's like a cigar smoking, like, but he's more like of the people, and he like has a club that he runs, a music club that he runs. But he seemed very over it. So, you know, I feel like he really got the best of both worlds and gets to sign off sort of on his own accord. And I kind of wish this is like what the other women had going for them, is like they would be like, we're calling it quits. We love it. It's very important to us, but like we're putting it to bed. This chapter is closed.
I think everyone was okay with that in season 6. And I think that, of course, as you age and like careers are what they are, I think now everyone is like, and because now everyone is interested in exploiting IP and like getting as much dollars as they can out of existing. And that's why it's annoying. It's like, if you can't get all 4 of them, just don't do it, because it's never going to be what it was without all 4 of them. And also, like, it's bad, but entertaining.
Correct. I'm excited to see what comes next. Any other predictions from you?
I don't know that this is a prediction because maybe he was in the trailer, but like Aiden's going to come back in some capacity.
Oh, I thought the flowers were going to be from Aiden. And then I was like, oh, right. Samantha makes more sense. Were you a big person or an Aiden person or a neither person?
I was a big person, at least in relation to Aiden. Aiden was not for me.
Yeah, same. I was a neither, but I kind of understand the appeal. I understand the appeal of both, but I was maybe neither of those people for you, Carrie.
Were you a Petrovsky?
Yeah, no, but I do completely, what I didn't understand watching it in real time, where I was like, why would she do this? As an adult, I completely understand why she went with Alexander Petrovsky. It made complete sense. Her friends were all like partnered, had kids, were settling down, and like had little to no time for her. And she was like, I've got this like really great thing happening that could take me to Paris. It's like, why not just like see what happens there?
Yeah, it was interesting. I haven't revisited those episodes, but I totally do understand that. I feel like that's my current like life. But I thought that they like abandoned that character. Like, they let him become terrible in a way that he was. Yeah. There were inklings, I guess, but it just felt a little bit like they set her up to go there, and then like she came back to New York and like ends up back with Big, and I was like, oh, okay, so maybe we could have like had 3 more episodes to earn that. Right,
let's do season 6C and like do this correctly. Yeah, correct. I feel like they. Yeah.
We can't just stay who we were.
Right. That was the essence line of the piece. I appreciated that. I understood. Whew, I feel alive.
Me too, baby.
Every time, like literally, I had an hour-long conversation with Brennan and Alex about this too, and I was like, I didn't realize that I had so many heated, passionate feelings about this show, which really does speak to the quality of the original writing. I think like drew 4 distinct characters that were archetypes that then got deepened over 6 seasons. So all of this is said with love. I do think the show shouldn't be existing, but I will be watching it. But like, I really do love Sex and the City, and I love those 4 characters, and I will probably follow them wherever they go, no matter how bad it gets. But please let us know, dear listeners, how you are feeling about And Just Like That. We will be caught up by Friday with the new episode. So please slide right into those DMs to let us know how you're feeling. And if Sarita Chowdhury shows up, shout her out online. We love her so much.
Okay, folks. Well, we hope that you enjoyed hearing us talk about And Just Like That. We are going to be back in just a few days. I feel like it will feel like probably 2 weeks, but it will just be a few days because we're going to be going through the turnover of the new year. We hope that your holidays are whatever you need them and want them to be. We hope they are restorative and relaxing, or we hope that they are chaotic but fun, or whatever, that you get to eat well and drink well and sleep well and see those that you love and care about, or get to spend great time alone. We will be back here on January 6th with a brand new actress interview, because that is what we are normally doing here. And should we tease that a little bit?
Oh, please, let's tease it, because this one was critical for us that we landed this person who just happens to star in one of our favorite movies of all time. We've had someone from that movie on this very show.
We've talked about that movie at length in maybe a similar type of episode to this, where we talked about that movie. We are thrilled to have them on the show. I'm so excited for you to listen to her interview. Also, I started to work on her You Might Know Her From, and I was like, wow, like there's just so many titles, because she's been in so many high-profile films and TV shows that you know and love. So we're very excited for you to hear that episode, and maybe you'll be able to put it together based on those few clues.
I will just say this person has credits in 5 different decades.
So if you like what we're doing, can you please give us a review? We really could use it. It will really help us keep doing this thing that we love to do. We love talking to actresses. We love talking to Julie Halston and Sarita Chowdhury. We love talking to all the future guests on this show who've been on Just Like That. And we love
God, Sakina Joffrey, who was in Splat, one of our favorite episodes of Sex and the City of all time.
Oh my God, go back and listen to that episode where she talks about how Kristen Johnson fell out the window. It is an incredible reveal, and also seasonal, if you'll catch my drift if you go back and listen. So yeah, if you like what we're doing, please leave us a written review. If you give us a review in the Apple Podcast app, it's the best thing you can do to keep us doing this thing.
Thank you so much for another great calendar year with You Might Know Her From. If you want to be abreast of all the things that we're talking about between now and the next episode, follow us on social media at Damien Bellino. That's Damien with an A. Very important. I feel like it's the Italian spelling, not the Irish. And Rodeman, that's Rodemanne. You Might Know Her From is produced by us. That's me, Ann Rodeman, and my best friend over here in maroon burgundy, Damian Bellino. We'll be back with new actress episodes in 2022.
We want to thank our consultants at Grumpy Entertainment, Jason Jude Hill and Daniel Sears. We also want to thank Daniel Sears for all that perfect editing that you hear. We would be lost without these two, so shower them with your thanks too.
And as we bring this year to a close, we want to thank Gang for providing us with all the music that you hear on each and every episode of You Might Know Her From. You can stream and download their music wherever you listen to your tunes.
You want to find a link to the Origins podcast? You want to read that article that I referenced that made me change my mind about how they handled Samantha? You know what you can do? You can go to the show description and go to the show notes. Those are where my co-host here, Ann, dibble dabbles in a Google Doc and fills it up. It is chock full of information, links, videos, everything that we've talked about in this podcast that we think that you should get your eyeballs on.
I just want to remind you that one of my favorite things about Kim Cattrall is that she had her family tombstone engraved with...
Is it like something rose? Like English, like I don't remember.
It's like somebody's Cleopatra or some shit. Hold on, I gotta look it up. Hold on.
It's like Wales Cleopatra.
She gives us everything we need. The scatting video, Mannequin 2. I mean...
No, she's in Mannequin 1.
No, Mannequin 1. Oh, right, that's right. She's in Mannequin 1. I love Mannequin 2 more, actually.
Oh, I love her in Mannequin. Also, she's her performance in the Downton Abbey parody video where she's playing Elizabeth McGovern.
She's so good. Oh my God, such a good reminder. Thank you for that. That's going to be in the show notes. Here we go. Kim Cattrall ordered her family to fix the family plot. And on the Cattrall family gravestone, it has Kim Victoria, born 1956, no death date, obviously. Underneath her dates, it says, the Liverpool Cleopatra. She's nothing if not who she is. I love Kim Cattrall so much. God, we can only hope that she'll come back for And Just Like That.